Tánaiste, the background to the Irish referendum campaign is what's happening not just in Greece and France, but also in Spain. Now, last evening we heard the Governor of the Central Bank, Patrick Honohan, saying that a Greek exit from the euro, while unwelcome, would be technically manageable. Is that the direction which events are moving in your view?
Well, I think the situation in Greece is very uncertain. And nobody is in a position to say what exactly is going to happen there. You have now a situation in Greece where you have uncertainty piled on instability. We can't control what is the situation in Greece, but what we can do is we can make a firm decision for this country. And the firm decision that we need to make on the 31st of May...
And before we come back to that, are you and your foreign minister colleagues in Europe preparing for a Greek exit?
No. As I said, what will happen in Greece, I think, is very unclear. We have a very unstable, very uncertain situation there. And I think that the lesson from that for us is to go the route of certainty, to be definite, to make a clear decision on the 31st of May, to opt for stability as far as the euro is concerned, to ensure that there is confidence from investors and that we can have access to emergency funding if we need it, and that we implement the good housekeeping rules that are part of this treaty.
One by one. But Gerry Adams, Guido Westerwelle, the German foreign minister, was saying on Friday that if Greece strays from the agreed reform path, then the payment of further aid tranches will not be possible. That solidarity is not a one-way street. So is he bluffing?
Well, we don't know. What we do know is that this is a bad treaty. I mean, the Tánaiste knows that. He knows that in his heart. He negotiated in the Taoiseach.
But let's stick to Greece now.
No. Let's stick to Ireland, because we do know what's...
No, we have to talk about the context. We have enough time to come back to the detail of the treaty. I mean, what's happening in Greece is really important, and maybe Michael Noonan is right, and you've just proved him right by wanting to shift away from discussing Greece pretty well immediately. I mean, surely we can't ignore what's going on there.
No, I'm not ignoring what's going on there. But what I'm saying is that no one knows the outcome of the crisis in Greece. What we do know is that the crisis is created by austerity, that parties there have been in power, like Fine Gael and Labour, who have been pursuing austerity policies. This treaty perpetuates austerity. And I go back to the point I was going to make. We definitely know what's happening here. We have lived austerity. And I have been all over this state, and particularly over the last few days, in Mayo and Leitrim and Roscommon and Cavan and Monaghan, and my own constituency of Louth, listening to people who can't even sleep at night, worrying about paying bills, who are concerned that their children coming out of college are going to end up in Brisbane or in Toronto now.
But does what happened in Greece last week in the vote and the uncertainty, does that lessen the likelihood of austerity continuing? Is it going to lift the burden?
Here's what we have to do, and let's be very, very clear about this, Sean. We have to change the direction that we're going in. Now, you won't cut your way out of recession. The Tánaiste said that when he was in opposition. He said that during the election campaign. He did say famously Labour's way or Frankfurt's way. He railed against an economic straitjacket.
I'm sorry,
bear with me. And he was right about that. Now, what we have now is people in high places saying we'll end the famine by starving the people. You have to get jobs. You have to put money into incentives, into stimulating the economy, getting people off the dole, stopping forced immigration, creating a ripple effect, increasing our tax take, and starting...
OK, before we go back to the Tánaiste, maybe I am wasting my time in asking you again about Greece, but it seems to me that the Greek voters want two things. They want an end to spending cuts, they want an end to increases in taxation, but they also want to stay in the euro. Is it possible for them to have both?
Yes.
Despite the fact that they have failed to meet all their targets, and that the left, which is now dominant, wants to throw over and kick over the traces of all of the austerity measures.
What sensible people want to do, and what we want to do in this state, is to move away from policies which don't work. And if you want proof that it doesn't work, even in terms of the government's own objectives, just look back over the last year, or indeed before that, over the last 4 years. We cannot be put out of the Eurozone. We cannot be put out of the European Union. The government used to say this at the beginning of this campaign. They're not saying that any longer. And what we need to have is a focus on what will work. And what will work is incentives which invest money in getting people off the dole and back into employment.
Eamon Gilmore, again, Gerry Adams is merely reminding you of the arguments that you made in the last general election campaign. Isn't he right?
Well, can I first of all say that Mr. Adams was advising us only a few months ago that we should go the route of Greece. Now we know where that gets us. This country, what we have to be talking about here is about recovery. The people of this country have endured a lot over the past number of years. People who are out of work, people who've lost businesses, people who are in mortgage distress, people who are having difficulty in making ends meet. And what we have to do as a country is we have to work our way out of that, and we have to recover. And in order to recover, we have to get our economy to grow. And getting our economy to grow means that we've got to get people to invest here and to create jobs here. We're having some success in doing that. We've seen a series of jobs announcements over the past number of months at a rate of about 1,000 a month, and we need to continue that.
But it was
now,
only when it became clear, Tánaiste, that Sarkozy was on the way out, that your colleagues, the senior European leaders, began to talk seriously about growth. But I mean,
that's not true. That's not true, actually.
I mean, there is a mention of it in the treaty.
No, it's more than a mention. In fact, this government, the Irish government, before this treaty was negotiated, when we go back into the latter half of last year, we argued and we put on the agenda that there was a necessity for a growth strategy
to what effect until Hollande won the French presidential election?
To this effect. First of all, to the effect that it was written into the text of the treaty. It states explicitly that this treaty is about promoting growth, employment, competitiveness and social cohesion.
And then secondly, the whole lot then is about rules and regulations, about financial stringency. That's what the whole thing is contains.
Secondly, it was also agreed at the January summit when the treaty was concluded that there would be a growth strategy. And if you remember at the time, that centred around lending to small and medium-sized businesses and also concentrating on youth unemployment. What the election of François Hollande does, and it is something that we very much welcome, is it will accelerate the discussion of that growth agenda. That is something that we welcome. But you can't have growth without stability. Stability and growth go together. They're not alternatives. They're not opposites. You have to have one to have the other, because I'll tell you why. Because an individual investor thinking of setting up a company or a subsidiary here in Ireland, one of the first things that they will look at is the position of the euro. The first question that I'm asked, and I attend a lot of these meetings with investors and potential investors, first question that I'm now asked when I attend any of these meetings is, how do I see the future of the euro and how do I see the future of the European economy? These people are looking to see, is the euro stable? Is Ireland's position with the euro, is that solid? And what happens in Ireland if we run into economic difficulties in the future?
Now,
will we have access to
now is not the time to rock the boat, Jerry.
Those who are in the boat are unlikely to rock it for fear of going overboard. Let me just make this point. There's nothing meaningful in this treaty about getting people back to work. That's why the President-elect in France...
There is actually.
Now, I didn't interrupt you, Eamon. Please. The President-elect in France has not signed up for it because there's nothing meaningful in it. Secondly, we're not being asked to change our constitution to make an institutional issue of investment in business. But we are being asked to change our constitution to allow Brussels to come in and set fiscal policy for us. This is the government which says that it wants to restore economic sovereignty. You're the man who said that Fianna Fáil was guilty of economic treason. You've now joined with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael.
Come back to the growth agenda that François Hollande has put front and centre now, Jerry Adams. I mean, there is this summit planned for the 23rd of May. It's Wednesday week next. Are you saying that Ireland on its own, by voting no to this treaty, can get a better deal somehow than Hollande can leverage
strengthen
as the new president of France?
Well, there are 2 points to be made.
We effectively can be more powerful than him.
Absolutely. No, well, not more powerful than him. That's not an appropriate question. All things are relative. But let me say this. The Tánaiste and the Taoiseach signed off on a treaty which the unions are against, the vast majority of trade unionists are against, because there's no social or economic merit in it. And contrary to what the Tánaiste says, there is nothing in this treaty which makes any meaningful and positive and constructive contribution to the need for jobs and jobs investment. Now, just let me come back to this point about sovereignty, Tánaiste, because you shook your head there a moment ago. The fact is that this treaty does give the power to the European Commission to come in and to set fiscal policy. And it also, it does.
Okay, can we just park that and go back to the growth? What do you think can come from this summit in Gilmore?
Let me respond to what Mr. Adams has said, because this is not the first time in this campaign that Sinn Féin is misrepresenting the truth. You produced a leaflet misquoting three economists who turned out to be supporting the treaty and pretending that they were opposed to it, and you're doing exactly the same now. Firstly, in relation to jobs. This treaty is about a stable euro. You have to have a stable euro if you want to convince investors to come in and invest here. Secondly, it is not true, as you have said, that the Commission will set budgetary policy. What this treaty does is requires us to have legislation, our own legislation, passed by Dáil Éireann, which commits us to good housekeeping, which makes perfect sense, and anybody in this country who understands even a minimum of what budgeting is about knows that you can't continue to spend money that you don't have, particularly if you don't have somebody from whom you can borrow it. And thirdly, what this treaty does is it makes sure that this country can have access to emergency funding if we need to have it in the future. If we come to the end of 2013, and Mr Adams, you're the man that told us that we should default, which means we wouldn't get money from private sources. You told us to tell the IMF to go away and take their money with them, which means we wouldn't get money from there. You now want to veto the establishment of the European Stability Mechanism. You have no answer for the people of this country about where we will get money at the end of 2013 if we need it in order to pay wages, to pay for our hospitals, to pay for our schools, to pay for pensions. And that is an absolutely irresponsible position. Either you don't understand the economics of this, or you are playing party politics with the future of people in this country, which I believe is highly cynical and highly irresponsible.
Well, we're not playing party politics.
You are, actually. You're putting party before country.
I think my involvement in politics for all of my adult life shows that I don't put party before country. The people of this island are what matters to me, and that's been my position for a very, very long time, and the position of Sinn Féin. On the issue of sovereignty, and I won't read it out to you, Sean, but it's there in Article 5 and it's there in Article 7, where you're compelled to be part of an economic partnership programme under the tutelage of the European Commission.
No,
and sorry, let me finish.
You're misquoting.
Please let me finish.
The word tutelage is not in that. You use the word tutelage. You use the word tutelage and it's not in it.
OK. Shall be defined in European Union law. Their submission to the European Commission and the Council for endorsement, and their monitoring will take place within the context of the existing surveillance procedures of the Stability and Growth Pact. And then it goes on to say that where a contracting party, that's if you have your way, this state, then the Court of Justice will be able to bring in judgments which shall be binding to the parties in the procedure, and will take the necessary steps to comply with the judgment within the period they said. But hold on a second, please. No, that's the clause. That's both clauses.
Actually, what's far more interesting, could I suggest to both of you, to our listeners and our viewers out there, is where do we get the money to pay the bills next year after the bailout period is over?
Too, but I just want to make the case. This is the government which says that it wants to get back sovereignty, in which rightly chastised Fianna Fáil for giving it away, and that's with Fianna Fáil giving away even what remains of fiscal sovereignty. We will get the money post this Troika. Bear with me, Eamon, please, listen and learn. Post this Troika deal from exactly the same place that you will get the money from the ESM. Because the only way, and we're not looking to veto the ESM, by the way, we're simply looking to you not to walk into the Dáil and to ask us to vote for a measure which would exclude the people of this state from funding which we're quite entitled to as members of the European Union. Will you do that, Eamon? Will the Tánaiste and the Taoiseach walk in and vote for this clause, which would, because that's the only way it can become law?
No, let's be clear about this. The ESM is the emergency fund that the Eurozone is establishing for the euro,
which hasn't been established yet.
And you want us to veto that.
No, I don't want you to veto. No, I don't want you to veto that. No, you're misrepresenting. No, I have not said that.
No, you're the one doing the interrupting now. No, let me finish.
You're misrepresenting what I'm saying.
No, but there is a technical point, Eamon Gilmore, that there is a piece of legislation or a Dáil motion required to set up the ESM separate from this treaty. It flows from the treaty. And Sinn Féin and the no argument is that at that point you have leverage that you're saying you won't exercise.
No, we don't, because we don't. And the Independent Referendum Commission has already made this clear, that Ireland does not have a veto on the ESM. And we don't have a veto on the ESM for the very simple reason that the ESM comes into operation when those countries who make up 90% of the capital of the ESM ratify it. We make up less than 1.6% of the capital of it. Therefore, we're not in a position to veto it. And in any event, it's not a good idea to veto it. This is the emergency fund. This is the insurance policy which is being set up to underpin the euro. And the only access to that, is for those countries who ratify the treaty. And there's a very good reason for that. Nobody gives you money without conditions. This idea that you can go out there and that somewhere somebody will
So where are you going to get the money,
provide you
Jerry
with
Adams?
money.
Where are we going to get the money?
At least some of your compatriots on the nose side are honest about it,
Eamon,
and they admit that it will result in 10 billion extra having to be raised in taxes from the people of this country. You seem to think that there's money to be got from somewhere, somebody out there somewhere. That is heading into the unknown. It's heading this country down an uncertain route.
Let's hear Jerry Adams.
Sinn Féin never said that. Some other party said that, not Sinn Féin. Sinn Féin have been very, very practical. We put forward costed proposals, which were costed to the largest extent by the Department of Finance and by some independent accountants of how, or economists of how we can move our way out of this. But look, you'll pardon the pun. It's a bit rich for you to be saying that there's not money for free. There is money for free if you're a bondholder. There is money for free if you're a big banker who created the difficulty in the first place, because we economically can sort out our deficit. Bear with me.
Stick with the treaty now.
Bear with me.
No, but Mary Lou and others have been saying,
you
have been saying money will be provided. The question is, by whom and on what terms?
I've already said, and I've said it repeatedly here, from exactly the same source as the Tánaiste or the Taoiseach, if it comes to it. Unless you vote to remove our right to funding.
You're saying as well, you're insisting that if we vote no on the 31st of May, we can still get money the same way as we did before.
Absolutely, because
despite that provision in the treaty.
Because it's part of the European Union project. It isn't just about us.
This is
bear with me, and you know, Eamon, where this started. This started, Eamon, with the European Bank feeding money into the banks here. So you think they're going to risk contagion right across the Union?
This is
not misleading. Look, come here. You know, Eamon, this is a bad. You know this is a bad.
Jerry Adams, as a matter of interest, if Greece is cut adrift by the euro, whether you call it the European Union or by the eurozone, doesn't that tell us something? I mean, we'll be able to see fairly soon whether that happens or doesn't happen. Because, I mean, there may be people there, and there are people presumably saying money will be provided, we will get funds. What happens if they don't? Is there a lesson there for us?
Well, the one thing we know is this, Eamon, or Sean, we shouldn't answer hypothetical questions. The second thing we know
these are very real questions, actually.
The second thing we know is this. This is not Greece. This is the 26 counties, the republic of this state, right? And Eamon knows that what I want is a real republic on this island. All the sort of things that you talked about when you were opposition, that our people will be treated equally, that we'll have people off the dole queues, that we'll stop forced immigration. We have a government here which, you know, it's so deplorable, taking 500,000
changing the argument.
Because this is what people know. And people know if you vote for this treaty, that's going to happen for at least the next 20 years, because this is a charter.
I mean, that is a charter. You cannot look at nobody.
Let me finish my point. This is a very, very straightforward treaty. It's quite short. People should read it. It is a charter for cuts and a charter for fiscal compact, which does not work in the interests of European workers. That's why the trade unions mostly, and most trade unionists, are against it. That's why the Labour and social democratic movements across the European Union are against it. The Labour Party is out of step. All the things that you said, Eamon, during the time that you were in opposition, so eloquently and so passionately, were true.
And I say them again.
Act on what you said.
I say them again. I say that what we need is we need to get this country to recover. We need to
get people back to work.
Please,
get people back to work.
Now, Mr. Adams, please.
What happened to your strategic bank?
You had a long run. I mean, you know, bullying and engaging in that type of politics now is not the way that this treaty referendum debate should be conducted.
Just we
need to get this country to for its economy to recover. To get this country's economy to recover, we have to create jobs and we have to attract investment. Attracting investment means that we have to have a stable euro. That's what the treaty is about. It's about making sure that there's stability in the euro. It is also about making sure that we can look people in the eye. People today, for example, who are out of work and who need assistance from the state, people who need to access education services and schools and hospitals, and that we can look them in the eye and that we can say to them, yes, we are certain about where money is going to come from in order to provide those services into the future. You're asking them to take a punt. You're asking the people of this country to take a punt with their future, because you can't tell them where funding is going to come after 2013. Neither can you tell them how we are going to get investment into this country particularly in circumstances where there's doubt about the euro. This treaty is not the only instrument that has to be used in order to get the European economy to recover, but it is an essential part of it. It's an essential tool in a number of tools in the toolkit that we're going to have to use, including growth measures, including getting the European Investment Bank to invest further in the European economy, including the kind of things that I believe that President Hollande and the other leaders of Europe will be talking about at the summit meeting on the 23rd of May, moving the growth agenda forward, but moving it forward on the basis of a stable treaty and a stable euro. Now, that's what makes sense, because
let's get a response to that.
Well, President,
I think in fairness it's time to hear from Jerry
President
Adams.
Hollande is not our Taoiseach or our Tánaiste. And the treaty that you agreed to, on your head be it, because apart from anything else, this treaty will oblige us. We are, as part of the fiscal compact, to reduce the structural deficit to 0.5%. That will cost us, on top of the 8 point... Please, Eamon. Now, you accused me of bullying when I was making a genteel intervention, so please. It will cost, on top of the 8.6 billion, which you're tied up, and which the punters out there, the electorate, the ordinary people, lower and middle income families, people who would traditionally vote for your party, they're having to bear that burden. And it's real, Eamon, it isn't imaginary. Secondly, that will be added to by 6 billion.
No, that's
and
not
then
true.
Thirdly, this will become part of structurally how this state will be run for at least the next 20 years. Now,
Can we just ask you one specific question, Eamon Gilmore?
There's no gainsaying that.
You mentioned growth, you mentioned President Hollande and the upcoming summit. Can you give us some idea as to what kind of measures that will be of interest and relevance and value to this country that may emerge from that, even in embryonic form?
Well, there were a number of things which were discussed in January. First of all, there was more flexibility for lending to small and medium-sized businesses. Secondly, there was the question of youth unemployment. There was discussion around youth unemployment of using unused structural funds. One of the problems with that is that you can't transfer.
You haven't mentioned any new money. Chancellor Merkel is saying we can talk about growth, but no more borrowing.
The European Investment Bank. I think there's scope for a much wider role for the European Investment Bank. But all of that, I think, has to be grounded on there being a stable euro. As long as we continue to have a situation in Europe where there is doubt about the euro, or where in respect of this country there is doubt about our relationship to the euro, we will undermine investor confidence. In order to get this country out of the economic difficulty that it has been in, we have to create jobs, we have to get the economy to grow, and we have to get tax revenues to raise. And that means having a stable euro.
Jerry Adams,
and all of Mr. Adams's fairy tales about what may happen in the future, and we'll get money from somebody, some tooth fairy will turn up some morning and provide money for us. I mean, that is simply raising one argument after another. Right through this campaign, you have been found out. You were found out when you lied over what the three economists said.
That's strong assertions, Eamon. Be careful now.
You are being found out in relation to what you are saying about the deficit. You are being found out in relation to the growth agenda. This is a campaign where it seems to me that Sinn Féin will use any argument, and when that argument is debunked, you'll then move on to.
Let's hear a response. That's some heavy arguing, Eamon Gilmore. Can we just have a last response from Jerry Adams?
The difficulties we have to grow our way out of them, and we have to take a responsible decision on the 31st of May to go with stability and to go with certainty, and not head into the unknown as you would wish
The
us to do.
rhetoric that you've just used of growing our way out of it is not replicated anywhere in this treaty. Now, there are three things that have to be done. We first of all have to bring in progressive tax reform. We have to cut out wastage, but more importantly, we have to stop forced immigration, and we have to stop our people relinquishing any sort of economic sovereignty and ending up in the dole queue in perpetuity. And the only way to do that is to give this government guidance on the 31st of May to change direction, as some of your partners are doing across the European Union, away from austerity and for jobs creation and jobs growth. That's the way to do it.
But to create jobs, you have to get investors to invest here.
We're getting investment at the moment, Eamon. There's investment coming in, and we welcome that. Even
and you don't believe there'll be any destabilisation of our prospects by a no vote?
I have made it very, very clear that when people are faced with a choice of a very, very bad treaty. And the Tánaiste and all of his other...
Are you talking about the investors in America who may be thinking of locating
They're coming in at the
here?
moment, and I've commended the government for that. They're coming in at the moment in the middle of all of this
uncertainty. And they won't stop and think twice if we vote no.
And my humble opinion, they come in because of our corporation tax and also because they want to make profit.
And
so
a no vote would make no difference to their intentions.
What a no vote will do is to set this government and other European governments in a new direction towards jobs creation, towards protection of public services, and away from the failed policies of austerity.
We're leaving it there. Gerry Adams, Eamon Gilmore, thank you both for being with us this evening.